So I wanted to ask you to join me, and I want to thank you, Dr. Trong, for joining me. A little bit of background. Nobody knows this. I haven't even shared this with my team, that you were my advisor at Northeastern University when I was doing my doctoral work. So I want to thank you for that. And why were you so supportive? That's what I want to know.
Thank you so much. I didn't realize how much I had an impact on you, Colonel. And for me, just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I'm a first generation college student. My mom has a 6th grade education. My dad has a 9th grade education. And I grew up low income, grew up in the projects for the most part, but we've also, like my family had also been between homes and homeless when I was growing up. And I am underrepresented, a refugee, and a student of color. So for me, going through the higher education experience, it was really hard to make the transition from high school to college. I ended up being okay because of the people who supported me. And in my first job outside of after college, I realized I didn't want to go to law school. I didn't want to become an attorney, but I wanted to work in higher education to help other students like myself. And so being able to work with students like you, Ahmad, was really great because I could help with providing that support and encouragement to you and to other students. So that's one of the reasons why I pursued higher ed, was because I could help support people.
I do have a few questions, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on them. So how do you feel that your background, first generation, low income, sort of prepared you to have a career in academia? Because I always tell folks, I haven't had a job in 20 years. I don't want a job. This is a purpose and a calling, and I want other professionals to take it that way, because people that tend to be successful in our business, in our line of work, are the ones that are passionate about what it is that they're doing. So tell me how you sort of found that passion, and how your background has been helpful to you in sort of creating equilibrium, sort of, and creating opportunities for everybody across the board.
Sure. In terms of my background, one thing that I've always noticed is that I'm a researcher. I always look into different things. So as an undergraduate student, even though I was having problems in classes where I would skip a lot of classes, being first gen, I didn't feel connected to the course content. Sure. One thing that helped me was I knew that I needed a job and other skills. So I was able to use resources outside of what was given to me in coursework. And I wouldn't recommend for students to skip school or anything, but I think for me, just knowing what I needed and seeing the big picture, not just this is my experience now, but looking beyond college and looking beyond school, and being able to figure out what I'm passionate about. You had mentioned, Colonel, about people who do this work well are people who are passionate about things. And I was always passionate about advocacy. Growing up, I always advocated for my parents when it came to supporting them to access support services. And so I think that's why I felt like I wanted to go to law school so I could do advocacy work, but there's so many different avenues for advocacy work. You could do it in student affairs and higher education. You could do it as a faculty member. You could do it as an administrator. So these are some areas in higher ed, but you could actually do it everywhere, like in career advancement and career services.
How do you feel that it impacts our first generation low income students of color? How does it impact them with this economic downturn differently, or harshly rather, than other students that have additional support at home?
So I think for first gen low income students, one of the things is that a lot of the frontline workers are affected, and students who come from these families might be directly impacted from the pandemic. And also there's more pressure for students to find jobs and provide for family members who might have lost their jobs. They have to also find jobs to pay off their student debt. And so with the pandemic, they're unsure of job availability, with so many people currently out of jobs right now, and with the recession, so that there's not that much, there's also not as much access for first gen low income students when it comes to networking, because they don't have access to social capital that other families who do have generations that have gone to college have larger networks that they can tap into. So the students have to be able to find access to the networks in different ways, such as going to career services and using the support services that are provided on Handshake, as well as getting career counseling. They also have to be able to network using Handshake or like LinkedIn and find people who will then connect with them. So it's a little bit harder. They have to do a lot more work. And I think the research shows that like 70% of jobs are filled through networking. So that means like the ones that are posted that the students only know about, like that's a lot more difficult for them, because with those 30%, they're competing with a bunch of other people, right? But with the 70% of jobs that are gotten through networking, those aren't listed. Those positions could have been created for people, or those were positions that were coming up for others, that were coming up that people had in mind. So to be able to tap into networking to connect with folks is really important.
Yeah. Talk about the component of networking. Obviously, throughout the academic year, we're putting in together networking events. Alumni presence is heavy at VMI. And how can these students sort of best leverage that
I
component?
think networking works differently for different people. I'm an introvert, so when I go to networking events, it's not the most greatest experience for me because I'm not the person in the middle of the circle talking to everybody. But I do try to find individuals and connect with them on an individual level. And if there's someone that I haven't been able to connect with at a larger event that I want to, I will send a follow-up email to them just to say, like, I really wanted to meet with you, but we didn't get a chance to connect. Would it be possible for us to have an individual conversation? So there's different, I network in different ways. For instance, when I use LinkedIn, it's a little bit easier. I like to use alumni databases. As an alumni myself of other institutions, I volunteer my time to talk to their students. And so alumni are a really great resource. A lot of them will let you job shadow. They'll let you meet with them for informational interviews. Some of them will actually review your resumes and application materials. So if you have alumni like that, or an alumni database that specifies what alumni are willing to do, it's amazing because you can reach out to them and ask questions. So I always emailed people about internship opportunities, and then it led to like a full-time position as well too. So I say go for it. Do what you're comfortable with. If it's like, and you're an introvert, that's okay. There are ways around it. If you're more comfortable with email, I think during the pandemic, I think email works really well, and telephone calls too. Always try to find connection with them. If you find somebody that isn't on the alumni database, that is an alum of the school, you can email them and say that you're really interested in learning more about their career path. Would they be willing to speak with you? So I always try to develop relationships first, and not even think about opportunities, but it's always good to build that network. So then later on you can stay connected with them when you're a senior, to say like, I'm looking for positions in this area. Would you have any advice for me about this? And sometimes people will stay really well connected and they'll send jobs your way too. So always try to network.
We have a lot of internships for non-credit, meaning they will not show up on the transcript. They will show up on their resume, obviously. They'll put down that they've had an internship. And then we're thinking, well, how do we know it's an internship? Is it because you think it's an internship? Or did it, obviously, if you're interning at a nationally recognized organization, I don't know, at the White House or the CIA or Eastern Young, Ernest Young, or one of those financial firms. Obviously, they will have an internship apparatus. But if it's not a well-known company and it shows up on your resume as an internship, sometimes there's a question about, well, how is it an internship, or is it like a part-time job? How do we know the difference? What do you think? As an employer, is it important to have an internship on a transcript, or is it more about the learning experience you take from it? And what do you recommend to students that are looking for internships? Because also I'm assuming for professional connections, if anything else.
And I think for undergraduate students, whether it's a job or an internship, I think it's the experience that really matters in the skills that they developed, as well as the relationships that they've developed with people within the organization and the company. I remember with an internship that I did as an undergraduate student, I found them through a database at my college, and I interned with them for 2 years. I then had to leave, even though my supervisor was like, can you quit your job? Can you quit school so you can come work for me full time? And she was really great. That was when I was like 19 or 20 years old, and I still keep in touch with her. I think I saw her like last year or something, and she's retired from her position. I'm sorry, I have kids who are in the room right now. But I think, yeah, having undergraduate internships, if you don't have the jobs in the area that you're trying to go to graduate school for, or like, let's say like clinical positions, if you don't have those clinical positions, but there's internships or research assistantships or different opportunities, like I feel like they're all the same thing, so long as you develop the skills and whatever that you need to get to where you want to be, right? So whether it's job skills, the networking piece, or and sometimes I think the organization does matter for people. So if it's in a smaller organization that people don't know as much about, you should provide some information on your resume. But then also you should develop a lot more experience within that organization too.
So one of the concern is because semester just ended and still a lot of uncertainty. So then employers are still waiting, and oftentimes students or cadets will graduate mid-May, take a couple of weeks off, and then start a job June at some point. So personally, I'm concerned what is to come over the next few weeks, where they were not looking anymore because they thought they had a job, and now they don't. So reaching out to employers now and say, hey, I know I'm starting in a few weeks. How are things looking? Might not be a bad idea as well.
Yes, I agree with that. And then also, how are things looking? Could I do anything to help with the transition process to make things easier on your end as a new employee? So that way they know that you're thinking about them, but you're also willing to do some work.
The times have passed where that you sort of went to college and you got a job to make money, so then you can focus on what you want to do in your free time, right? Let's flip that on its head and focus on what it is that you're passionate about, and then can we help you find some work that addresses that, so hopefully it won't feel like work.
Really important to, when you're looking for a job, to make sure you find that good fit of an organization and just a place where you'll enjoy coming to. But then also in terms of like when you get the job offer, it's not only the salary, like you said, but it's also benefits, and there's ways to negotiate what you want. So if you want flexibility, before it was a lot harder, people couldn't work from home as much, but now like with a pandemic, things have been different. But there are different perks that you could ask for that aren't salary related that would make your, I think, your standard of living better. So make sure you also negotiate.
There's a lot of talk now about um, with whether it's immigration issue, or you think about how the workforce is, maybe there's a time to sort of say maybe the cost is too much, and maybe not consider graduate school. Is it worth it? And how do you determine that for you?
I think for me personally, it was worth it because coming from the immigrant background that I do, and just being low income, my parents always saw work as a means to make money rather than something that you're passionate about, that you care about, a place where you find you find your meaning and where you're happy with something. And so when I tried to explain to them why I wanted to get my master's degree, and they were like, but you have a good job and it pays well. And I was like, but I'm not happy there. And I want to pursue an area where I'm really happy. So I think for me, it was completely worth it. And I think a lot of people like say the same thing about undergraduate degrees, right? Like not everybody needs a college degree, but at the same time, the people who are saying this are the ones who have huge networks, who have access to generational capital, have access to social capital. So having these degrees also helps you to gain access to these as well too. Well, not necessarily generational wealth, but perhaps like through the jobs that you're able to get with a master's or a doctoral
Well,
program.
Dr.
And
Trong,
then,
thank you very much for taking the time. It is so good to see you 8 years later. We haven't talked much since. Again, thank you for the great work that you did with me, especially, and really helped me graduate and get my doctoral degree. So, wouldn't have done it without you. I appreciate it. And yeah, look forward to reconnecting again anytime. Um, and take care of yourself and say hi to Boston for me. I miss it.
thank you. And thank you for being my student. I really enjoyed working with you. And I look forward to reconnecting, and thank you for inviting me today.
Cheers. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.